Welcome to the audience. Back to today's hot news. The 2. Trump is not coming back. White House brings 60% to 100% tariff nightmare for Chinese goods. A trade war is looming, pushing millions of workers into Chinese businesses, and the mortal race against time, whether they can ship the goods to the US in time. Before the tariff storm hits, we're going to go back to Trump's first victory. In 2016 at that time, it's caused an earthquake in the Chinese manufacturing world. From wood cabinet factories to garment factories, the constant increase in CA working scene, the electric light is on all night, in time to complete the shipping order to the US. Before the death penalty was imposed, a factory owner, a tired and anxious voice shared with the press, "It's 11:30 p.m., we are still packing the cabinet urgently. For North American market, exports are the only fragile ray of hope." Their fears are not unfounded. Data from China's General Administration of Customs shows, 2016 exports soared 12.7%, $39 billion, the highest in 2 years. Statistics show that China's exports to the US in 2016 spike 88.1%. It's an amazing number. An effort to clear inventory before Trump takes office, Trump's worldview strategy, it's estimated to impact $500 billion. Annual export of China, that's enough to make Beijing lose sleep. But $500 billion, it's an estimated annual loss. Due to Trump's scrap strategy, it's still a huge burden. It weighs on the shoulders of Chinese companies. Many factories, especially those in the textile industry, were looking for new ways out. Potential replacement markets. Africa with cheap labor and development potential, it's emerging as a promised land. An alternative to the risky US market. Even, some businesses have received notifications from US customers, requests to suspend shipments, shortly after the 2016 election results were announced. It's not just about boosting exports to North America. Chinese traders are also looking ahead. To Russia, exports to Russia reached $61.25 billion in October 2016, up 24.4% year-on-year before June, the US Treasury Department announced today. Expansion of secondary sanctions on Russia, according to this plan, any foreign financial institution, transactions with Russian entities, to be punished, it will be seen as working directly with the industry. Russian Defense, former Secretary General Gado Gensto-Temberg warned China that, if we continue to support Ukraine, will definitely harm their own interests and reputation. 1 in 10 new NATO Secretary General McCloutwalk reiterated that China became a supporter of the invasion of Ukraine. He warned that China will face the consequences. However, Beijing seems to ignore these warnings. Continue to strengthen cooperation with Moscow, in the fields of commerce, investment and food security, despite the risk of rising tensions with the US, and when Trump was re-elected, Chinese companies are facing, it's not just about tariffs. It's also the return of an unpredictable politician. It's an uncertain factor in international relations. The Chinese government has already tasted the wind approach, which afternoon, that's what Trump did in his first term. Even though the CA praised the president for his close comments, public opinion believed, no matter the American words, Trump will continue to change policy. Hard competition with China. The anti-China consensus is growing. Democratic and Republican parties in the United States. This makes Beijing even more uneasy. Even under President Biden, US-China tensions have not eased. China has repeatedly accused the US of refraining from pressure, limiting access to technology and trade sanctions with Russia. Beijing openly supports Russia. It shows through collaborative relationships. Beijing openly supports Russia, expressed through an unlimited partnership, stepped up military exercises around Taiwan, and the hot air balloon incident that shocked international opinion. China feels the pressure and prepare for the uncertainty of an American administration. China has attempted to placate US allies and partners, from significant concessions on the border issue with India, to roll out the red carpet, to receive high-ranking officials from the UK and Japan. Beijing is working hard to build relations with Washington's key partners. Move to lift import restrictions for Australian products. Like wine and lobster, it is considered an effort. Efforts to sweeten ties with Australia, according to some close sources. Chinese leaders are still considering launching the ultimate economic gift for America's allies. In Europe and Asia, including tariff reductions, visa reductions and increased investment, the divide and conquer strategy, to win the hearts of American allies to isolate Washington, we can help Beijing minimize the damage to the Chinese economy. China's fear of Trump's return, it's clear. By Beijing's surprise, relaxation of visa policy for visitors, from about 20 countries. That includes close US allies like Australia, New Zealand, Denmark, Finland, and South Korea. China is not asking these countries to implementation of reciprocal measures immediately. This is a clear sign of goodwill, and maybe both. Beijing's impatience in improving the image and strengthening international relations, even before the election. Chinese state media has also made moves supposed to support Mr. Trump. Is this an attempt to please the president, this unpredictable, or simply a miscalculation by Beijing? However, observers say that all these attempts at appeasement, it's hard to shake Trump's tough stance. For China, China has been successful. The challenges of Trump's first term and the Biden administration, but the current context is different. The Chinese economy is facing many difficulties, from real estate crises to declining consumer confidence. Old tricks like commercial navigation, currency devaluation is afraid that it is difficult to work as before. More, relations between China and America's allies. It's no longer smooth sailing. The European Union is getting tough on Beijing, especially that, after China showed its support for Russia during the Ukrainian war, an act that the EU considers a serious threat for the security of the group itself. Asian allies of the United States such as Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines, they are also increasingly wary of their neighbors. Full of ambition, fear is even fear. China before the return of Trump expressed clearly, even the smallest details. Criticism of the US election system was hastily removed shortly after Trump's victory was confirmed. It shows great caution. Every inch of Beijing, according to researcher Li Chenggu, China has carefully analyzed both candidates and noticed that Trump's election would be too much of a burden. So they quickly removed this sensitive content. Analysts agree, no matter how China behaves, their happy days with America may be over. Trump, with his unpredictable nature and tough stance, it's not easy to ignore for China. A new trade war, it's even a full-blown economic confrontation, it's predicted to be unavoidable. With the support of the allies, the US can completely tighten the siege, isolating China on the international stage. Congratulatory message from President Xi Jinping, sent to Mr. Trump. Call for cooperation and avoid conflict. It doesn't seem to have been well received by Washington. The possibility of reconciliation between the two countries is considered very low. When Mr. Trump is expected to, we will take a harder line than ever. China has expressed its willingness to talk, but are still quietly strengthening ties with allies, the American tradition, to find support and buy time in a bitter competition with Washington. A sharp decline in capital flows, FDI in China in recent times, along with many national corporations, decided to withdraw from this market. It's the clearest evidence of the cumulative difficulties that the Chinese economy is facing. Can Beijing steer the economic boat through the coming geopolitical storm? The future is still uncertain, and China are facing the orange challenges, the most go in history. Modern, bipartisan consensus in the United States on China, along with the EU's tough stance and Asian allies. It's making Beijing's game even more difficult. Whether China's belated efforts enough to change the course? What do you think of today's shocking news? Please leave us a comment below the comments section. Don't forget to follow, so as not to miss the next hot news.